Welcome to the Heal with Kelly podcast. I'm Kelly Noonan-Gorse, and every week I speak to the leading doctors, healers, spiritual teachers, and scientists to find out what is truly possible when it comes to healing. I also interview real people with extraordinary healing stories. My philosophy is, what's possible for one is possible for all. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful journey of remembering our divine nature and tapping into the truths that shall set us free. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heal with Kelly podcast. I am very excited for today's conversation with Dr. Michelle Patrick, this beautiful being in front of me. If you are listening on wherever podcasts are, I encourage you to go to YouTube to see this beautiful, luminous soul in front of me named Dr. Michelle Patrick. She is a doctor of Chinese and naturopathic medicine. She's from the UK. She's at the forefront of a self-mastery revolution, combining her profound expertise as a clinical doctor of Chinese and naturopathic medicine with a robust foundation in biomedical sciences. Her approach transcends conventional medical practices by advocating for a holistic view of health, where the physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions are harmoniously aligned for optimal self-healing. Beyond her practice, Dr. Patrick is an esteemed clinical researcher and lecturer, contributing her insights to some of the world's most prestigious academic institutions. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah. So you're so multidimensional. I'd love to just get a little background on your story of how you ended up doing the work that you do.
It's interesting because it was always very innate. So when I was a child, my father was in the US military. My mother worked in oncology, actually.
Wow.
So it's multi-dimensional household, and we always grew up in villages. So especially when he was stationed in the UK, so we grew up in villages, and I kind of used to roam the fields of the cow fields and stuff very young, and lay in the fields and wonder what this was all for, our connection to nature. So I was inquisitive quite young about what this connection to the all is, because I was pretty sure that it was more than just to look at,
Yeah.
So I decided to stop picking plants. Like, I must have been about 7 or 8. So I used to go and pick all of these plants. And, this was before the age of the internet. And my mother used to take me to the charity bookstores, and we'd find books on like herbs and plants and stuff. And she bought me a little plant press. And I used to press these plants and like put them in my crafty book and label them. And I was obsessed with this from a very, very young age. And then that just kind of continued. But I mean, my first love was nutrition, outside of kind of this innate sensation of being more connected to nature than what it was for. And that was because when I was 11, they used to come in on base, on the Air Force Base, and they used to do like health checks on us, right? It's kind of weird now I think about it. Actually, yeah, now I think about it.
Yeah.
But they told me I had high cholesterol when I was 11. I remember being absolutely horrified. I was so horrified. Like, I ran home from the elementary school we were living on base at this point. And I was like, what? I don't understand. I'm getting all of these vibrant packed lunches, Fruit Loops, fruit rolled ups and stuff like that. So I'm thinking it's fruit, I've got
Yeah.
Capri Sun. It says orange on it. So I'm like, what are we talking about? High cholesterol. And so I had to have a conversation with my mother, and she was like, oh, yeah, about that. Not all fruit and food is equal. So I then started becoming quite obsessed with reading labels, and that was at 11 years old.
Wow.
Um, and that's when I started really paying attention to what I was eating, and that just kind of carried on. My father had an amazing bookshelf full of all kinds of books, even though he was quite an unhealthy human being. He had all of the healthy books. And I remember there being one by Dr. Stephen Chang on internal exercising and 5-element theory. And I read that when I was like 13 or something. And I was just really creatively involved with kind of Taoist philosophy and on the internal systems. And then that's what happened. Like, I've never done anything else.
That's amazing. So it was clear. It was just a clear passion from childhood and all these things. That's amazing.
Yeah, totally a clear passion. And then, yeah, it was interesting, going through the kind of academic protocols of antiquated systems and then kind of coming up with my own understanding of what works for my patients and my own view of naturopathy and wellness, because it's such a huge industry now.
Yes, it is. And so what is biomedical sciences? Because I think that's such an interesting dimension to is that just what you take as like pre-med?
That's just pre-med. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
all of the sciences.
Yeah.
And then you knew based on this like kind of affinity for nature and herbalism and then a foray into nutrition, you kind of knew that you would be more of a naturopathic traditional Chinese medicine angle.
I mean, naturopathy was my first love because nutrition was my first love, and Chinese medicine came, about 4 years later, but I was still in my 20s. And I was blessed because I was quite an athletic child, and my mother, even though, working in conventional medicine, used to take us to unconventional places for treatment. So if I get an injury, she'd take me to the acupuncturist or something like that. So um, it was fascinating for me because yes, I did always know, but I always wanted the insights of modern science, and the way that we could explain things, explain this body that we live in, not just in poetic nuance, which I also love, but I like to know how things work.
Yeah.
Um, and when I was studying naturopathic medicine, and a student in clinic and doing all of the things, I realized that it just wasn't enough. It didn't feel full enough for me. It didn't feel like there was enough depth. And whilst I have an amazing amount of respect, for the theory and the methodology of naturopathic medicine, it was it just wasn't connecting all of the dots that I knew could be connected. And Chinese medicine really did that for me. It kind of weaved all of the webs that have no weaver.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. We are all the weaver and the web.
Yeah.
I love traditional Chinese medicine because, obviously modern medicine has its incredible advantages and like you said, you like to get down, inside the microscopic world and be able to have an understanding of what's really going on. But then to know that, 5,000 plus years ago, traditional Chinese medicine has been around for thousands of years and like kind of knows all this stuff as well without the modern technology. So I'm just blown away by that. But talk to me about, the elements because, well, I don't know, you're known as the organ lady, and then there's I let's start with the organ lady, and then we'll get into the elements.
Ah, that was so funny. That happened to me. I was teaching at a retreat in Orlando, and I'd finished teaching the retreat, and I got off the plane back to Miami because I was lecturing in Miami. So I got off the plane, and I was walking down this part of the airport to the baggage area, and I could hear these feet like running behind me, like in boots, like click, 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 and like somebody's going, excuse me," and I thought, oh, it's not for me, so I just carry on, and these steps were getting like faster and louder and louder, so I'm like, and I turn around and somebody was like, "Are you the organ lady?" And I was like, maybe, maybe, and she then started sharing with me that she had a teenage daughter who was 16 and she was going through some quite rabid body dysmorphia, and unworthiness around her body and stuff like that. And she'd found some of my videos on YouTube and different masterclasses that I taught. And she said, my daughter's absolutely obsessed. And just from listening to you, she really just finds the beauty in her anatomy now. Like she's in awe of herself. And, I just wanted to thank you for that. And she was like, yeah, but you're like the organ lady. I was like, okay. I guess I'm the organ lady. But that comes from, I have a real deep love of studying the internal ecology from an organ theory perspective, which essentially is not just looking at the organs as anatomical physiological function, but because we are a whole beautiful, universe of our own, but really connecting the attributes of mind that live in physiology as well. Because I feel like in holistics, we separate the mind, body, and spirit, or whatever consciousness, whatever you desire to explore that as. And it's kind of like going to do leg day at the gym and forgetting to do arms, or not doing too much cardio, or not doing, enough anything else, resistance training. And I like to look at the body as a whole piece of divine engineering, like this chariot of divinity. And organ theory has this amazing insight into not just how the biological physiology functioning of the organ works, but how that reflects in the mind. And different attributes of the mind can be accessed through different organ systems. And what you find, especially in clinical practices, is that when you ask the right questions to your patients, you realize that the physiological symptomology that they are experiencing also mirrors stagnant chronic behaviors or emotional attributes that they also have in mind, and they cannot be separated. It's like somebody who has a weak spleen, like they've got a spleen chi deficiency, as I'd call it. Yes, they would have all the symptomology of a spleen chi deficiency. It might be loose stools, it might be bloating after eating, fatigue after eating, brain fog, undigested food in your stool and stuff like that. But they also have like the psychological reflection of that, like in the brain fog, because the spleen is part of the digestive system, the stomach and the spleen, the organs of digestion within this kind of theory. And they represent the part of the mind that is the intellect. So our capacity to psychologically digest. So you find that people that have digestive issues in these particular organs also have issues with psychological digestion. And when you tonify the organs and bring them into an awareness of connecting the dots between chronic emotional behaviors and physiological symptomology, that's when you're really on the cliff edge of wholeness. And it's really profound to see kind of the revolution of wellness that happens, not just from relieving very long-term chronic emotional patterns and biological physiological patterns, but then being able to use the body as a tool of alchemy. So if I want to be more present, I might work with the large intestine, because the alchemical virtue of the large intestine within this theory is the preciousness of the moment, our capacity to receive and let go. So it's bigger than a tool of medicine for me. It's like Harry Potter's wand, organ theory.
I love it. I love it. And as you're speaking, I'm like, well, how do you know what to adjust, knowing that everything is so interconnected, the emotions, the psychosomatic to the organs. And I've often heard in traditional Chinese medicine that like the liver, processes anger, the lungs process grief. So what do you address when you say tonify the spleen? Like, do we address the physical to relieve the mental and psycho, or do we address like do the emotional healing and then the spleen comes back online? Like what comes first?
Okay, so this fascinates me. I'm sure you can tell I'm very passionate about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very passionate.
I love it.
Because I like to quantify myself as a student of matter, like matter, what's tangible, what we can touch, what we can taste, what has tone and texture, because I think I'm a student of mind. And I feel like it's the yin and the yang, right? The body is the matter reflection of the immaterial, the emotions, the more yang aspects of our human experience, the things we can't touch but yet really truly experience. And yin and yang are mutually dependent and intertwined. So I always find it fascinating how the mind can definitely be used as a phenomenal tool of mastery, even when healing the body. However, I like to work backwards, actually. So I like to work backwards. So yeah, it's like if somebody is struggling, I've something that's really, really quite profound that I've noted that I saw in clinic really early on was working with people that have PTSD, and usually soldiers, right? Really, really severe PTSD. And what also is present is that the discovery and the experiences of the human experience that triggered that emotional behavior is very real, right? Because it's their discovery and experience. However, they all have the same liver pulse, and they all have attributes of physiology pointing to a liver yin deficiency also. So what that shows is that yes, we experience life, we're unique expressions of consciousness, right? We're all experiencing it in unique ways. However, because the body is the tool that we were given to experience it with, then the body holds the score. So depending on how we experience those things is really going to depend on the state of the body at that time and the emotional impact vs the physical impact. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's really quite profound because you will notice that people have the same pulse, or I one of my last theses was on the neuropsychiatrics of dementias and the use of scalp acupuncture and the neuropsychiatrics of dementias. And it was my father passed last year from Alzheimer's, actually, and he was my inspiration to the research. When I went in to do my second doctorate, that was my inspiration. And what was fascinating about that, even in the neuropsychiatric behaviors of patients who have dementias, is that they all have organ things going on. They might have heat in the liver, or they might have kidney deficiencies, and all of these things are interconnected. And it was just really profound to see that the state of the body really impacts the way that we experience our unique discoveries and experiences of life, how that happens for us.
Mm-hmm. And are there like some glare? I mean, I just mentioned a couple, like, and you've mentioned a couple as well, but oftentimes women, it's been discovered that they develop breast cancer because they've over nurtured other people and have kind of neglected themselves. Are there any other kind of ahas that we could share from your knowledge and seeing patterns in some of the people you're treating and some of the conditions they have, and what kind of emotional consciousness, blocks that we should look for or look at?
Totally. Because, okay, so with organ theory, that we have a kaleidoscope of emotions in our wheelhouse as humanity. But we can literally place certain emotions within certain organ systems. So if we take like grief, for instance, right, that is housed in the metal element, which is the lung and the large intestine. And while both organs they're very closely related to grief, because the lungs are our capacity and worth, the lungs are our capacity to take in goodness, to absorb heavenly chi from the divine, if you will, and then absorb it in the body. And then the large intestine, we call the large intestine the alchemist, because it has this amazing capacity to know what is needed in the body and to get rid of the rest. And if it does not do that, it will auto intoxicate the terrain, the body. And in life, we often do that ourselves. And one of the most profound things that I see, especially in oncology patients or people with colon issues, is that there is a huge amount, or has been a huge impact, of grief on their life, or there is an element of something that is not being processed, that is not being let go of. So it has auto intoxicated the system that's associated with that particular environment and the emotion. And it's really profound, because when you ask questions, and I'm really deeply passionate about self-mastery and empowering humanity into new ways of seeing and experiencing the profound capacity of human potential. And so when you start sharing and opening up people's awareness into behavioral patterns and their conditions, that is a one-way road to healing. So definitely, I see it a lot in colon issues, colon cancers, Crohn's disease, those kind of things. Even stomach issues, gastric issues, and people's capacity to worry, like people that worry a lot, we call that knotted chi, and people that have knotted chi, this inability to psychologically digest, usually have digestive issues. And that's one of the profound kind of shows of the placebo, right? Or that connection between matter and the immaterial is like, if somebody worries about something, you immediately get a feeling in your gut, like associated with worry or with anxiety. And that in itself is a profound show of consciousness, of this indisputable, mutually dependent connection of matter and the immaterial, and its capacity to not have tone and texture. We can't taste it, we can't feel it, yet it has such a profound on matter, because matter is the means by which we experience consciousness with. So I do see a lot of that. People that have had really deep issues around fear, even have a lot of kidney issues. I see a lot of kidney patients who have had profound experiences with the fear in their life that haven't been transmuted, because that immaterial and matter connection has to go somewhere, and it's usually held in the soma, in the tissues and the cells and the fascia, and at one point it is going to mutate the kind of inconsistent flow that is being reflected from emotion.
Oh my God, I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours. I'm just as passionate. So like I love this stuff. Thank you for sharing that. The grief makes so much sense, and the letting go, and the breathing in the lungs and taking in this divine gift of oxygen, that's perfectly in balance with nature. As we breathe out, the trees take our carbon dioxide, and it's just this beautiful interconnectedness externally and internally. And then the colon, like to be able to digest and take what you're needed, and let go of everything else. It's like when we're not doing that in life, our cheese all up in knots in those areas.
And we're auto intoxicating, right? You know what? Really, if you don't mind sharing a story, because as we're talking about this, the most profound example of this is actually my mother. So, my father had a really terrifying, long, long journey with Alzheimer's, and it was horrifying. And she chose, as a medical professional, to look after him. So he was never put into care or hospitalized. She turned the house into a hospital. And, that is very difficult as a wife to do. She literally became his full-time carer, his medical carer, along with other medical staff and whatnot. And it was horrifying for her. And his death was also equally as horrifying. It was not peaceful. And so when he passed, she had to not only deal with the horror that she had experienced in the caring for him for like 7 years as he slowly deteriorated, but then the absolute grief of him not being there, and trying to process all of her own trauma in her caring for him and the grief that she was experiencing after. Well, my mother developed this cough, this chronic, weird, hacking cough. And it was just consistent, continuous. My brother, we're all got dabble, apart from my father. My brother is also a sleep scientist and a spiritual physiologist. So we're all like, and I was like, I don't like that cough. I don't like it. I don't like the cough. He was like, I definitely don't like the cough. So we sent her to the doctors, and the doctor was like, I don't like that cough either. Took loads of bloods, sent her for an x-ray, and something came up in the x-ray, right? And we're like, but we didn't know what it was, because she had to go and have a CT scan and, ultrasound and stuff like that. Well, what showed up, what came, was that she was diagnosed with a very stage 1 lung cancer. She was in so much grief. Like, she had inflammation in her lungs, and there's a very, very small lesion in her lungs. And that was so profound for her, because she knows the depth of grief that she is experiencing, and really not putting things in place to try and support the grief, which I think is okay. It's okay to be with it. But at that moment she was like, oh my gosh, I'm ready. I'm ready to not grieve, and she went into profound amount of self-healing, and she managed to, release her tumor, and also release a huge amount of grief, and now her lungs are clear. So that in itself was really insane to witness, especially knowing my mother's emotional trauma, the way that chose to manifest in matter.
Yeah. And there's grief post death, there's also 7 years of grief as this person that you knew is slowly slipping away. It's like double whammy.
Yeah, it was awful, awful for her. But yeah,
Well, good.
she's
That's
wonderful.
amazing. That's a beautiful story. It's an amazing too that she was in oncology and conventional medicine, but also had this like took you to the acupuncturist. It's just I love those just
Yeah.
beautiful stories. There's place for all of it. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the five elements and how you weave them into this. Because you guide people to become their own healer, activate their healer within and become, self-mastery and investigation and self-reflection. So how do we use the elements to, reflect back and gain a level of self-mastery?
Okay, the elements of the love of my life. And it's interesting because, as we kind of deepen into this landscape of our conscious community and awareness, things can get a little fluffy. And five element theory is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. I believe that it was the beginning of modern science, right?
No fluff.
Um,
Yeah, no, the fluff has all been fluffed off. Yeah, it's real.
it's very real. Um, and like the I Ching, right? The five elements, everything was communicated in symbology in those days. No, but because words are a casualty, the translation gets lost in words. So everything was communicated symbologically, and they had the I Ching, but which are the hexagrams, but the triograms predate the I Ching and the hexagrams by like thousands of years, and that is the original communication of five element theory. So, you know, the elements are the building blocks of the universe, right? In this particular theory, and they vary in other different practices, but are very much the same. So in this theory, they're fire, earth, metal, water, and wood. In Ayurvedic, you have air, but what's interesting is that metal is the lungs and the large intestine within Chinese medicine, five element theory, but in Ayurveda, it's air which houses the lungs. So it's all beautifully, just the same, just different.
Yeah.
So five element theory is based on the idea that everything in creation is elemental, including humanity. So within different element systems in the body, say if the fire element houses the heart, the small intestine, the triple burner, and the pericardium. The earth element houses the stomach and the spleen. The metal element houses the lungs and the large intestine, the kidneys, the water, excuse me, the kidneys and the bladder, and the wood element, the liver and the gallbladder. And they come with their own energy, right? When we think about the energy of these elements, they all come with seasons. So summer represents the fire element. It's much akin to the way that blood moves through the body. The earth element is like the harvest, the late autumn. So it's a really profound way of connecting humanity with its greater environment, and also being able to look at the energy of certain elements in nature and how they move also through us, through organ systems in the body. It's really profound. And every element houses different emotional systems as well, again, that are completely intertwined with our systemic ecology and how that reflects in the mind, and being able to really reach parts of human consciousness um, that allow us to really kind of create the life that we desire, rather than just being kind of dragged down the street by our ponytail, if we had one. I don't have one. By our collars, maybe, by, fate, if you will. But it really allows us to utilize the system that we have been given to design, curate the gallery of our existence, by utilizing different parts of our human engine, if you will, to empower the mind and the different parts of consciousness as we experience them.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we are very aligned in our philosophies. What would you say? Because we are co-creators. We are, d- part of this healing journey is just remembering our divinity, and we're direct little light rays from source.
Yeah.
How do you explain the balance of like what we do have control over and what we don't have control over? So we're
Mhm.
co-creators, but then there might be a journey for someone who, like your father, for instance. I mean, he came in here, and had to go through that experience of exiting through Alzheimer's. It's nobody in human form would choose that,
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how do we surrender and accept while also being as, um,
Being pilots.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Being pilots. Um, Life is phenomenal, isn't it? I really just sometimes I weep actually at the fact that my eyes have sight and that we're experiencing this reality that really nobody has answers for. Like it's majestic. And I don't see beginning or end. I just, because I'm a student of body, like even the cells, go through a process of cell death, but then they divide as they're going through a process of cell death. There's cell division, and I don't see beginnings or ends. I just see evolution and revolution of this web that has no weaver, right? So I think that it's interesting because I know nothing, and I don't think any of us know nothing, but
Mhm.
we can philosophize on what we think we know based on our own experiences, and I believe that it's my belief that we come here in matter as unique expressions of one consciousness, of one source expressing itself uniquely through our own unique experiences of this reality. And sometimes that is going to come, in fact, most of the times that is going to come with very necessary challenges that build spiritual and conscious fortitude for us to experience more of the depth of this expression of source, of the one, of consciousness. And whilst we can, decide, don't step out in front of the road or don't do this, we aren't always blessed with divine pre-insight of what our journey holds for us. But having an inner standing, I don't like to understand, but having this capacity to understand that everything is always working in our highest and greatest good, even in our most painful capacity, and really sinking into the submission of there really is no beginning or end. There is just different experiences of the landscapes and the terrains of this reality is really quite profound if we can get to those points. But we are just human, and being human means holding on to our human stuff sometimes. And that can be a source of begrudgment, I think, for life. And funny enough, my mom always said as well that you could always tell if somebody got a really terrible diagnosis, right? Oncology diagnosis. She said you will always know which patients were going to make it and which ones were not. And she said you would just know. And it doesn't matter what grade, what type, you would just know. You could tell, you could feel it, you can sense it. And those who really kind of walked into the challenge and the acceptance of the experience and was like, okay, well, we're here now. What do we need to do? And also worked with all aspects of this experience to make it their own were the survivors. So I mean, that in itself, because that is the co-creation part, is our capacity to, um, it's epigenetics, right? It's like our capacity to literally not just co-create our reality, but co-create our internal waters, our cellular structures. So our capacity to communicate with ourselves on that level really is going to be the resonance of how we experience our challenges.
I mean, what you just said there and what your mom's experience of like knowing, and obviously she's a very tapped in, tuned in, intuitive woman. So she was present enough to even have that awareness
Yeah,
and it's a feeling, it's a sensation in the field of like someone's energy that's like, okay,
yeah,
acceptance and how I'm going to deal with this rather than resistance and victimhood, which again
right,
is natural human. We just don't want to stay there because it's very disempowering.
exactly.
but as you're saying that, it's like our biggest fear when we're in these meat suits, we forget that there is no beginning and an end. So we're resisting this like ending, it's inevitable. We're going to end, right? We're all going to die.
Absolutely. It's happening right now.
Yeah, we're exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, like Anita Morjani and Heal, she had this gift of being able to have a near-death experience and kind of come out of her body, tap into that source energy where we come from and where we will go back to. And it was so expansive and blissful and ecstatic that she was like, oh, I get it. So she not only did she realize that in her life, every decision, she developed cancer because she was coming from fear, but she
Mm.
also let go of the fear of death and just knowing that it's a cycle and we never die. And like you said, so if we can wrap our head around, if we can really understand that there's no beginning, no end, and that life is life, God, spirit, whatever framework you want to put it in, is for our greatest good and our greatest unfolding at all moments, then we can start to shift our perspective around, let's say, a cancer diagnosis, where in society, in this 3D dense world, we just equate it with like fear and all these terrible things, pain, death. And if we can go, oh, there's a perception, if we can understand our body is constantly working with us and giving us feedback and telling us, and this little, you know, beginning of a tumor that was in your mother's lungs was just a like, hello, we got to deal with the grief,
Exactly.
um, and go, okay, accept this is the challenge I need to go through as an alchemizing process for my soul's evolution. Let's go. And then, like you said, come at it from all angles, emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical. I mean, that's the recipe, right? Like,
Like total. And the acceptance of how profound we are. We are
mm,
so profound. Like we have been lied to, and disembodied and disempowered continuously. And it still happens, even in wellness, I believe. And I think, like the quote says, humanity is so scared of its power, like to really understand that every thought is shaping the ecology of your internal terrain, like it is changing the structure of your cellular waters. To really believe that is to really believe in the power, like the capacity for human beings to really thrive.
mm,
And that's a scary thought.
yeah,
It's
it's
it's petrifying.
no, I know, but that's why I love having these conversations because, oh my gosh, we have so much power and so much potential, and it is profound and it is awe-inspiring if you just like sit in nature and you're looking and then listening to this conversation and understanding how everything is a reflection, and oh my gosh. Let's talk about water for a minute, one of the elements, but I think, yeah, I got connected to you. I got to give a shout out to, I think, Sophia Hausman of Lumavite. Um, yeah, so she put you on my radar, and you are an ambassador for this hydrogen water company. So tell us about water and hydrogen water and its importance and why you're, an advocate.
Yeah. Okay. I'm actually the head of education for the company.
Okay.
Um, and I'm an advocate for progressions in wellness that simplify the experience for the human being. I believe that the wellness industry is almost as bad as the pharma industry at the moment.
Mm,
It is so complex. It disempowers people. It disconnects people from the capacity to be on a journey or consistently on a journey because it's so complex. And water is probably one of the most profound nutrients we could ever commune with. So to be able to not just highlight the importance of hydration, cellular hydration as a tool and dehydration as one of the most profound instigators of all disease, in our internal ecology, but to be able to study something like hydrogen, molecular hydrogen, obviously water contains hydrogen, but hydrogen infused water as a tool of simplifying healing is really profound. And like hydrogen as a molecule is unbelievable, like it was formed at the very birth of the universe. It's the most abundant element on the planet. It shapes galaxies, it fuels stars, it kind of it breathes life into our world. But as the simplest, most kind of ancient of elements and the smallest molecule, it really carries with it this primordial energy of creation. Today, it's science, and it's very well researched. Science will reveal that this molecule, if you will, in its molecular form of hydrogen, of molecular hydrogen H2, it really offers profound benefits for human health, for cellular renewal, things like beauty, but really unlocking like the body's natural, powerful detoxification pathways and antioxidant properties that really align and activate the body's innate wisdom because it is so ancient. And what's profound about water as the carrier of hydrogen is that our bodies are exerting huge amount of energy at all times, and a lot of us live in deficiency, especially organ deficiency. And sometimes, our wellness protocols cause more deficiency and they cause a reliance on the body than to take these things because the body is so tired that it needs these things, right? It's not natural. That's not normal to be able to have to survive on supplementation because the body is deficient.
Mm-hmm.
So something like water and hydrogen, because it's like the smallest molecule in the world, it's able to penetrate parts of the body that other things cannot. And instead, it's not a magical element. What it does is it donates its electrons to the body. So it's able to not make the body more deficient. It's that intelligent of a molecule that it's able to find deficiencies and imbalances within the body and just go straight there. And it's able to blood, brain barriers, all kinds of barriers that other forms of wellness just simply cannot. And it inspires the body, it tonifies the body, acts like it has this very potent antioxidant-like capacity, which, is profound in oxidative stress, which, as we know, is the number one killer of our societies. So it's just a really profound means of not just simplifying wellness, but really reconnecting us with the power of nature and the tools that exist around us to bring us into our highest and greatest good. It's a profound molecule, and it's so well researched clinically and scientifically that it's just undeniable. This isn't a gimmick. It is a really exciting level of science that is just coming into the trend now. It's not even really come to the shore yet, but I really believe that educating on things like hydrogen can really help shape the trajectory of what we view and experience wellness as.
Yeah.
Truly. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that because I had somewhat of a semblance of an idea, but I just love how you talk about it's got that imprint of that primordial creative energy because it's the original molecule and then also just how I just love the intelligence of human nature and or it's human and nature, the intelligence of nature to I mean, we're designed perfectly to heal in every moment. Obviously, modern society has a lot of ammunition coming at us from all areas that are disrupting this perfect system and balance. And so to bring back even I hydrate all day long and not previously with hydrogen and I'm still dehydrated, my skin is still dry, so there's even if you're drinking enough water that the wellness article tells you for your body weight or whatever, we have this pandemic of dehydration.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it just makes so much sense, the hydrogen, and I love that you say it's heavily researched because now I'm going to stick to it, knowing that and knowing it has the intelligence to go to where the deficiencies are in the body and start to heal that electrical imbalance is so cool.
And it kind of tonifies the body's innate capacity to keep us well, right? So even like it's able to penetrate because it's so small. It can penetrate like the lipid bilayers of the cell to get to the cell membrane, which is very hard. And through this kind of activating of this lipid bilayer, it's able to allow the cell to receive more nutrients from our food, to receive more nutrients from our supplements, because actually the state of human cells, a lot of the time, disallows us to even absorb the healthiest of food or the healthiest of supplements that you think you're taking. You are not even getting them in the body because of our cellular health.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
hydrogen is really, it's amazing tool for allowing the body to do what it's meant to do.
Efficiency. Yeah. So what is your protocol just for people here? Like, how do you mix in hydrogen water and regular water? And like, how do you work with hydrogen water?
Okay, so actually I'm drinking hydrogen water right now, actually.
Ah,
um, so I predominantly drink hydrogen water, actually. Because the hydrogen bottle that I work out a lot. I'm extremely athletic, and the hydrogen, it's just got profound effects on my athletic prowess, right? I'm hydrated for longer. I don't get muscle soreness. I'm able to exert larger amounts of energy. And this particular bottle, it unscrews the base, and I can screw it on bigger bottles. So I can always create hydrogen. So I can just turn every water into hydrogen. So I predominantly do that. Um, and because I sweat a lot, I drink a lot of it. So not only do I drink hydrogen water, but I have a hydrogen ventilator. So I ventilate hydrogen as well. And actually, the hydrogen ventilation and hydrogen was a profound foundation of why my mother is well now. Because as soon as we saw the tumor, not only did she go on her emotional journey of changing the landscape of her present moment, but we put her on the hydrogen ventilator 3 times a day. She's still doing it and drinking all the hydrogen water. So it's a perfect assistant for humanity. So I drink the water and I ventilate.
okay, cool. Can we get these ventilators anywhere? Like, are they available widely or no?
What? But you can, yeah, but I think like with anything, even hydrogen bottles, as soon as something enters the wellness industry, then we get all of the products entering the wellness industry, and it doesn't mean they're all good.
Mm-hmm. It's hard.
So that's also important. Quality is extremely important when entering into commune with biotechnology as a means to support human health.
Yeah. Totally. That's the biggest, like you said, it's so noisy in the wellness industry and not all of it is good or authentic. It's so overwhelming to navigate and figure out what's the right healers are, the right products are, the right, but I like the base level of working with hydrogen to support the system in being able to process all these things.
Absolutely. To do what it's meant to do, which is, keep us happy, healthy, and well.
Yeah. Well, you certainly look happy, healthy, and well. What can you please just like you have a shaved head, which I've always wanted to do, but never had the balls to do. So I love that. I don't know if there's a spiritual story about that. And then you have like, full body except for your face, tattoos. So what is this tattoo art? What's the story behind this beautiful artwork on your skin?
I used to have very long hair, actually, and I woke up one day. I don't know what happened. It was instant. I'm fairly spontaneous, as I'm sure you. And I had fairly long hair. I had locks, and I walked past myself in the bathroom mirror one day, and in the morning, and I was getting up to get ready to teach or something. I walked past, and I was like, "Hmm, that's interesting. I feel like shaving my head." And I saw clippers in the cupboard in the bathroom there that my husband was using or something. And I just took the clippers and shaved my head in the bathroom, much to everyone and my children's absolute horror. And I've never gone back. It's just such a revelation, honestly.
It feels so liberating.
Oh my gosh, like the time saved. I had a lot of hair. Okay. Um, and the tattooing or the art is, I view my body as my papyrus. right? It's my body is my papyrus. And it's interesting because people are like, oh, it's permanent. I'm like, no, it's not, because nothing is permanent. The body is not permanent. Nothing is permanent. What are we talking about? So I just have collected an amount of things to decorate the papyrus of my matter, and I view these things as like my hieroglyphics to my journey, and they all really speak, and sometimes it's not, there's not a profound story every single time, but um I'm definitely, there's a lot of symbology, a lot of sacred geometry and things that I really feel called to be in the presence of, and I just, doodle.
It's so fun. I've not broken the seal of body doodling yet, but it's there. There's always, I might have that spontaneous shave head moment, tattoo moment, you know. Ah.
Oh, God. It's funny people's reactions when you liberate yourself from your own dogma, right? Because I think that we all are caught up. I mean, now I'm in a dogma of having a shaved head, right? We are ruled by dogma, our routines, the way we do things, the way we dress, the food we eat, the places we like to go. It's like we're only just licking the outside of the wrapper of possibility, and it's interesting when you liberate yourself from a static dogmatic practice of yourself, how horrified people are at that. Absolutely horrified. It's like, are you okay? Like, people thought I was having a Britney moment. I'm like, I just need to shave my head. It's not that deep,
Yeah.
really.
Well, I mean, good for Brittany that she
I know.
verbified her name as like, to Brittany. You had a Brittany. Yeah. So funny. Um, so I guess just on finishing, like, what's your hope for, how you guide your clients and patients through this awakening of self-mastery and empowerment and just really giving them their power back? What's kind of your last message to this audience and kind of inspiring them to go on that journey in that way?
Oh my gosh, I really view the body and the way we experience the body as revolutionary. Like it is revolution to be in body, to have all of us have absolutely unique fingerprints. Not one fingerprint on the planet is the same. The way that the body is divinely architected with its joints, its sebaceous fluids, and the way it moves and the way we stand upright in a world of gravity. Like, it's just awe-inspiring. And I think that really returning to the absolute profound wisdom and architecture of just something like the fingers can be a key to healing our deepest emotional wounds, like unworthiness. Because how could you ever be unworthy or feel unworthy when there was only one of you on the planet, quite literally, and just really the body's divine capacity as the first tool of mastery that we were given to incarnate in this reality in, says something. It's like we didn't come here with anything else. We came here with a body butt naked. That's kind of important. So that is a sure sign that this divine technology is able to create wonders in this particular realm while we're here right now. And I really just implore people to return to the absolute magnificence of your human form and the power within it, and really by learning your human ecology are able to learn the secrets of the universe. I'm absolutely believe that, and it is your birthright to be well, and so why not explore that?
I love it. Thank you. As above, so below, all of that. It's so true. And I just love, I mean, you embody kind of radical authenticity. You are showing up as you, and you are very aligned with your purpose and mission and service at a very young age. And the last piece I'll add to that is oftentimes when we feel unwell, when we get a diagnosis, we've gone so far away from, like, you're so clearly passionate about what you do and this awe that you have for the human body and nature and how it's all interconnected and holds the keys to the universe. We just have to go on that investigation. Like, I am right there with you, sister. And so sometimes it's this wake up call to go, where, and Jeffrey Thompson talks about this in Heal, it's like there's a at a point in your life you come to a fork in the road, and it's the you can either choose to go one way that society and culture and maybe a small voice within you, the fear voice within you tells you that you should go, or there's this way, the other way that is where your heart, your soul, your passion, your fire, your vitality, your chi is telling you to go. And if you choose the first way, that's when dis-ease begins to happen. And so I want to commend you because you are so clearly in ease and grace and vitality, and your chi is not knotted. But
Not today.
yeah,
Not today.
we have moments, but it's never too late. And it is part of your healing journey to wake up to, where did I take the wrong road, or not even the wrong road? Where can I get back onto the road that is so in alignment with my gifts and service and fire, to be shared. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. Where can people find you?
Okay, you can find me all over the place. I'm very findable. On Instagram at The Earth Oracle, my website, themichellepatrick.com. And yeah, I think those are the two easiest places. But
yeah, it's the Earth Oracle. Okay, cool. And just, look out for the organ lady in any airport near you and run after her.
Easily findable in airports as well.
You're so funny. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute joy to hang.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.